Right, welcome back to the Roadside Rescue YouTube channel. I'm Ernest, and we're going to take a look at this Tahoe here. It's a 2003. It's got one of these weird, actually I've seen this one time before on a Chevy. I see it commonly on Jeeps and Chryslers and stuff where the battery light came on or the battery started dying. I'm not exactly sure. And the customer replaced the battery and that didn't fix the issue. So then they had the alternator replaced, and it's running better, but it'll occasionally like often when you drive it just down the road, the battery light will come on and it'll lose power, like it'll lose power to the throttle, and then you can turn it off and turn it back on and it'll drive again for a short distance until it does the same. And in my experience, it's usually been just hard stored codes and problems stored in the ECU, the ECM. And we're going to go ahead and just reset that. I'm going to try and battery relearn this vehicle. I don't know if these Chevys will do it though, and then we may just reset the ECM and check that out. So we'll see. I'm going to check. There's going to be some other problems as well, like bad grounds to the engine, to chassis and stuff. So we're going to go ahead and just check all the grounds and check all the wires, make sure everything's connected well, and then we'll go ahead and do the battery reset if we can on this vehicle. If not, then we'll just reset all those information stored on the ECM, and that usually takes care of it. But so right now we're putting out good voltage. I think before the alternator was replaced, it wouldn't ever put out good voltage. So that's usually, there we've got a blend door actuator, those are common. That's actually fairly common. Again, could be a few things, we'll see. There's actually a couple ways to reset an ECM as well. I'm not saying that's what we're gonna do yet because I haven't tested all these connections. The old school way is to touch the cables together, but I don't recommend that on newer vehicles as the computers are a lot more fragile. So I have a bidirectional tool that will reset everything if we need to, but yeah, there's a couple methods to doing that. I just wouldn't touch the battery cables together after you disconnect them, obviously not while they're connected. That's even worse. Okay, new alternator. First we'll just make sure that it's connected well. We'll make sure that it's got its main connector there. That's what regulates the output of the alternator from the ECM signal. Belt's nice and tight, ran on good. Yeah, sometimes it could just be like belt slipping or something. Okay, now what we're gonna do is just test the battery voltage. Then we're gonna test across all these points, make sure that we're getting good connection all through here, because stuff's dusty, but might be just a fine connection. Then we're gonna make sure that the chassis is grounded, the engine's grounded, and should just be a couple seconds here to figure out if everything's connected up well. Okay, let's see. Auto adjusting here. It's got some resistance in these wires, it looks like. No, those wires are fine. Just check those by touching them together. 12.26, that's fine voltage. Again, this battery's brand new though, so we'll go ahead and test power. Just stick the negative on the negative, and we'll run the positive lead down to those cables and the alternator. We want to make sure the frame of the alternator is grounded as well, especially on like these aluminum housings, brackets. That could be an issue as well. Here, this is our main battery line. 12.2726, that's good. Okay, not just check the bolt here, but make sure you check down on this fusible link. Could be a fusible link as well, but you would expect that to be kind of the symptoms of a bad alternator where it just doesn't, it's not putting out anything. Then we check the alternator here, 12.27, that's good. Steady 27. Same here, great. All on that alternator and the cable here. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, that looks fine. Let's check the grounds. In there, and make sure the frame's grounded. Good, in a couple places. Good. Make sure the bracket's grounded good. Yeah. Bolts. We've got some voltage drop through that bolt there. 7.79, but as long as this frame is grounded, that's the main point of interest. Some of that other bolt's fine. That's interesting that this one's got a, well, there we have 11. Maybe we just had a dirty spot on that bolt. Yeah, 12.26, scratch a little spot in it. Okay, see if this engine is grounded. 0.27. Jack up here on the intake. 12.27, that's good. Check the frame down here. 12.27 on the frame's good. Just poke around a few more places and see. Exhaust manifold should be grounded. 12.26. That engine's grounded, that's good. Hood's grounded. Main ground straps chassis here is good. The stud to the chassis is good. That's important. So we've got a connection there. Okay, well, looks like they're grounded fine. Let's go ahead and see what sort of reset we need to do here. It's, again, probably ECM and not just battery reset. And I believe on these Chevys you can't even do just a battery reset. So I thought this might be quick. I was just out running errands and I said I could stop by real fast. It may take a couple more minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and just see if we have any codes for that alternator, what the issue might be, and then I'm gonna check those signals. I wish I had an oscilloscope actually, because I'm starting to understand how to use those a little bit better, and check that signal going to the alternator, make sure that those are both good. I can't imagine it being a different issue. It's probably that signal, or maybe we have something shorted out on one of those wires. So, well, let me see. Let's plug this tool in and see what kind of codes we have first, and then I'll let you know. All right, I've actually got a new scan tool I'm gonna look at as well. It's a Thinktool Mini. And this is actually pretty cool. So I'm going to use this to see if I can diagnose it first, but at least give you a look at it. If we have to reset anything, I have not updated any sort of bi-directional stuff on this, so we may have to use my other big one. But this one's actually super cool because you can take this back off and put attachments on it, and stuff like a printer, thermal imager, oscilloscope, has a camera. I'll show you what it looks like real quick, see if you're interested. They gave this to me, so I'll put that disclaimer at the beginning of the video, but I'm not making any money for this. They usually give me a discount code though, so it'll be at the top of the description. Check out the link if this looks like a tool for you. And actually this one's like one of my favorite ones that I've gotten just from playing around with it so far. So let's see what we've got. We got it plugged in here. Actually, all right, we picked it up there. Pretty cool. It has indicators on the plug-in, and the plug-in actually stores right here. All right, let's do a health report. All right, so here you go. You can take that lid off the back, and there's the connectors you can put in a printer. Well, this is interesting because it doesn't have any DTC info, but it also didn't store any fail records, which, you know, aren't always DTCs. So that's interesting that it was having an issue and didn't think anything of it. Actually, as I look at this last data here, I just wanted to mention, because I did mention it's not bidirectional, you can upgrade it. It's like, actually, last thought, while I'm looking through all this data and everything looks okay, now I'm wondering if there's some other issue that makes that battery light come on when it loses power. Maybe it's actually like stalling out and the battery light comes on, and that's just all that the customer's noticed or looking at, and then he restarts it and it starts up. So I'm gonna test drive it and see if I can get it to pop up. And that's my concern now, is I wonder if it's actually not even an alternator issue, if that's just the battery light coming on for something else when it's stalling out. So we'll see. Though maintenance and service, if we can reset the battery and stuff, it's going to be in here for this vehicle. So let's see. I think it's just the battery one there. It's for the Tahoe 2018. It's not going to be that. It's a 2003, so maybe not. Here's a look at that. Check out the link in the description if this looks like a tool for you. That's my goal here, is just to show you guys a new tool. Not getting anything out of it. All right, well, I'm pretty sure I just found the problem. You can see that. Let's focus in there. Man, how do you not notice that stuff? I mean, I didn't do the battery replacement, so that, you know, sometimes stuff like that can kill the old alternator, just overloading it and stuff. So you don't know. Well, let's get that cleaned up real good, and I assume that's going to fix our issue there, because that's real bad. And that's like, people are always like, Ernest, you replace battery terminals all the time, and I haven't videoed doing it in a long time, but I replace so many out here. And my theory is that just the dryness out here in Utah, it's a desert, really just obliterates some of these battery terminals. Or in other words, it just really allows this corrosion to grow, and there's just no connection on that. There's very, very little connection. We'll get that scrubbed up real good. I'm gonna go get some gloves and some cleaner. And there's always people who'll be like, oh, you should have started with that. Like, well, hindsight's always 20/20. You got to start somewhere, so just make an educated guess. But in this case, that's not the case, because I definitely wanted to check for codes and stuff, and you know, if I went ahead and just disconnected the battery, then I would have lost any information saved. So definitely not the argument here, but there probably would have been somebody who said it regardless. Yeah, I mean, you never know. Like, sometimes it's the last thing you look at, but you just got to work through the system. You know, might have been the first thing I looked at the next time, but again, I wouldn't do that before I looked at DTCs, and that's what I did. I actually couldn't reset the computer with my scan tool, the ECM, so I just came out here to look at the connections and check everything out, and I'd be surprised if this doesn't fix it. I'll tell you that much. here, but I don't know. These are the same kind of connectors you have on these side post batteries. They're not my favorite. I mean, you can clean them, but you can see just the amount of corrosion that just gets trapped in there. We'll get it all cleaned up. I don't know, put those rubber things on there or not. Obviously on the positive, it keeps it from grounding out, but it's a weird design. I don't know why people don't just use top posts on everything. Man, that thing is nasty. Like I said, if this doesn't fix it, I'll be amazed. Soaked up there. This cleaner works pretty good. I just get it at AutoZone. I get everything at AutoZone. Still waiting on that sponsorship, AutoZone. Come on now. What do I need to do? Doesn't make any sense to me. Man, it's nasty. The alarm's gonna go off when I plug the battery back in, but you just take the key and put it in the door, driver's door, and unlock it and lock it. Once or twice it'll go off. See if I get the rest of this stuff is thick off of here. Plug it back in. Be good to go, I bet. I mean, this is probably the original issue. Oh, probably. I don't know. Did it burn out the alternator? I don't know. I'm not going to put that in the video. Man, go get a screwdriver or something to scrape the rest of that off stick. In my big truck, I have these little diamond tipped screwdrivers that I like to use for this stuff. See how this pick does. Probably a little too thin, too fine of a tip to get the rest of the stuff out efficiently. That's pretty good. Yeah, I can't tell you how many no start faults I go to that have corroded battery terminals, bad battery terminals, bad connection. It's usually the first place I start when I look at my own stuff, but on this one. That's something else you want to remember. It just occurred to me. Well, I remember to do it, but it just occurred to tell you, take the keys out of the truck when you plug batteries back in. A lot of vehicles will automatically lock the doors as part of the anti-theft. So I can't tell you how many times. Well, I don't do it anymore, but I used to lock myself out all the time. That's why I have that lockout kit, and that's why I always put the keys on the hood, on the roof of the car, vehicle, truck, whatever it is. Almost done cleaning this up. We'll scrape it up a bit more, but I got all the big thick stuff off that was gonna cause issues. You can see how nasty that thing is too. That wasn't gonna pass any current through it either. Get her cleaned up. You can get replacements of these. I don't keep any on stock in my toolbox though. For good measure, we're going to scrape those posts on the battery as well. Okay, about ready to go back together. Oh, my battery cleaner will actually clean out these posts as well, but there's no room here. I'm not going to take the battery out to do that. It's a brand new battery. Okay, we're definitely going to put silicone paste on this one so it sticks around for a while. It's an insulator, but it's not going to be enough to actually lose any sort of voltage continuity. So the main purpose is it's going to keep this stuff, this corrosion, from coming back, this oxidation. Get a lot on there. Ooh. Happy birthday. Oh yeah, my birthday's in like 2 days. Don't over tighten these. We'll rip the threads out of the lead on the battery. This is gonna honk, I bet. Let me just go ahead and close that door and get ready to deal with that. Oh, no honking, nice. Wasn't unplugged long enough. Should we put some silicone on this terminal, you ask? Yes, we should. Got distracted by the alarm possibly going off. A little crunchy crunch sound coming from those tiny sparks. This one's pretty clean. Just don't want corrosion coming, so. Let's do this. Bingo. All right, I'll put the extra, too big of a deal. Let's do the test drive thing and see if that battery light comes back on. I don't think it will. I'm trying to give it just a little bit of a load to see what it does. The alternator's just fine, but when I come off, it's getting pretty low on that idle. There, you can see the voltage drop down. Might be enough to make that light come on. So, goes dropping. It's that time of the week. I left my plug-in in the vehicle. I usually remember before I leave, but one time I left it all night and had to go across town the next morning. So let's go grab that. See you later. Okay, here we go. Here's the dip in that graph when I come off the throttle. That's another little detail there, but this line isn't very steady here, and this is the first time I'm really just like paying close attention to battery voltage, so to me that doesn't scream normal, but it might be. Okay, so once we get it into gear here and load everything up, just in idle, we've got a low voltage, you know, we're like at 12. Here it's starting to compensate a little bit, but I'm wondering if that tensioner isn't slipping just from the way it's acting. As soon as it gets up to speed, then it comes up. I just wish, yeah, I wish there was a good test for that. I mean, it felt a little bit looser than I think I wanted it to. So here, if we load up that torque converter, then we have that voltage come up, then I come off of it. Yeah, it's just not sitting exactly where it should. So, I don't know, something's not handling that load very well. All right, here we are, day 4. Yeah, it really is day 4. Cold start, you can see that alternator's charging a little bit too much. What do I have here, you ask? Diet Dr. Pepper, just kidding. Oh. We've got an oscilloscope, about the cheapest kind you can buy. You have to put them together yourself. Well, actually I got the kind that was already soldered. I had to put the case together because I was afraid I'd mess one thing up and then I wouldn't be able to use this, and I needed it for this very job right here, because first time we're getting into real legit electrical diagnosis. That being said, this is the oscilloscope. Why? Because this alternator's run off of a signal from the ECM. So what are we going to do is check that signal. It should be a square pattern signal, consistent, and if there's any variation, then that's not good. And we're going to check the resistance in that signal wire to make sure that it's not shorted out anywhere or, you know, corroded. And then if that's good, then we know we have probably a computer issue. If that signal's fine, then we've got another issue. And I think that might be a loose belt, because it's definitely loose. Problem is, I don't know if it's loose enough to cause an issue. So we'll figure that out. Signal's good, we'll start from there. And I've checked the engine, frame, everything. You remember, it's all grounded. The wires look okay, but again, you can get resistance once those get hot. So it could be something like the throttle. You know, the electronic throttle can cause some issues. Starter solenoid can cause issues. And other things can cause issues. The O2 sensor can cause an issue, apparently. So, shoo, what do? I'm not sure. Well, we would at least have a code for the O2 sensor, I believe. So, well, what do? We start with this oscilloscope. Let's slap that on there and see what the signal looks like. This will give us a next place to go, and we'll see what happens. All right, step 1, we remove the beauty cover. And then we're gonna just double check all these wires, make sure that we have power and ground, and then the gray wire is our signal. So, we'll do that, make sure we've got power ground, make sure we have a signal, and then we'll see what that signal looks like exactly with this tool. All right, so I've got my scan tool up here, Bluetooth, and I'm watching the battery voltage. I'm gonna just go ahead and unplug that connector. I believe that puts it into maximum output, so we're not gonna do that too long, but if you can do this with the key on as well, I mean, this may kill it, who knows. We'll watch the battery voltage, and if all goes well, you'll see this clip, and we'll test for signal on those. Because I wanna see the signal from the pin now, just with my multimeter, see what sort of voltage it's getting. I believe it's a 5-volt reference, but I could be wrong. Unplug this and watch the voltage there. Okay, yeah, so we dropped out completely, so that doesn't put it in maximum. I'll just put the key in the on position so I don't kill this battery. All right, so no signal without it running. That's what I expected, but I didn't actually do enough research to know beforehand. That's what I expected though. All right, take the tape off this. I've got these little pins. I'll back probe those. All right, so I've just reconfirmed that all those are connecting well, and we're gonna go ahead and throw this oscilloscope on there. I'll show you what it looks like. Don't really know how to use it that well yet, but this one's pretty base level model, so it should be pretty helpful to a new user. All right, just as simple as that, I hooked it up. It's actually just keying the on position right now. Got a uniform signal. That's actually, it's uniform, it's actually moving right now. That's not on a saved screen or anything like that. So that's good. That's what I want to see. Let's see if it does that while it's running and then when it warms up. Basically all you have to do is, I just have a little 9-volt battery to turn this thing on. You can, a couple different power supplies, hook up to that. Got some settings. It's on I think just ×2 the size right now, so that we don't get covered up by these little indicators up there. We could turn it down if we wanted to smaller. Basically, yeah, you can choose the refresh rate. It's DC current. I don't know, 1 volt scale. Yeah, there you go. Pretty standard signal there. That's what I think we're supposed to see. Unfortunately, now that it's running, it doesn't look quite so good. All right, so I went ahead and just paused it there. Here's our signal. Again, I'm gonna check resistance because it could just be some sort of short in the system, but the signal is definitely not okay here while it's running, which was interesting because it was fine while it was keying the on position. So, all right, my friends, well, there's your answer. No resistance, 0.1 ohms, if that. It's at 0.0 most of the time. We've got it plugged into connector pin number 75 here, negative connected down to the alternator set on ohms. Again, there's your 0.1 that comes up and goes away, but that is super conclusive that there's no resistance in between these two wires. 0.1's nothing. Again, it's between that and 0. If you saw, like with this one, I'm perfectly fine saying we are good to go in the wiring here. We've got a bad PCM, ECM, whatever it's technically called on this vehicle. That's a diagnosis well done. Whew. It's pretty fun. First one I've ever done successfully with all this electrical stuff. Great to break that barrier. Thanks for watching. All right, so here we are back with this Tahoe. This is gonna be the last video, the last little section. We've got the computer for it. We had that tested in the last little segment. It's probably all just gonna be one video with our little cheap oscilloscope where we saw the waveform was inconsistent and there was no resistance in that signal wire. So we're gonna go ahead, we've got the new computer now. It's a common failure because just a lot of capacity for that computer to put up with, and it'll be good to go after this video. Here we go. All right, so here we go. Oh, it must be water. These little rubber gloves get swollen up when they get water on them. It actually rained pretty good for 2 days, so stuff in the bottom of my truck here got wet. Normally I don't really care when it sprinkles, it just barely gets anything wet. These gloves do swell up though. And it rains like twice a year. This is the first time it really rained, and it's almost the end of August. So we'll get ready here. Oh, I was just gonna say, normally I don't really care enough to say, hey, watch out for this or that, and people ask and some people get mad. But not only have I had a terrible experience twice, I want to say 3 times, but I know twice off the top of my head, but I feel like it was 3, and a lot of other people have said the same thing. We're going to be replacing the computer here. I just ordered mine through AutoZone, so it has a warranty. If it's the same quality as those other computers, at least it's easy to warranty. But Flagship One, I had a terrible experience twice with them, so I would just say be careful. And again, I just say that because two times out of 2 and maybe 3 times out of 3, I don't remember. That's not good odds, and I had several people mention that in the comments of a video when I was talking about a computer issue as well. So probably goes to say something, just be careful with them. Basically just ripping me off twice. Then we'll get that serpentine belt tool. I'm gonna replace the belt and tensioner as well, even though we know that's not the issue, because the first time I came over here, the tensioner was not super tight, but it's tricky on these Chevys as well because of the way it is. They don't have to be super tight anyways, the way they route the belt around it. But the belt itself was also worn out, so we're just gonna service both. They have the same service interval. But again, that's not the issue. Just this one is normal maintenance. It just happens to go with this job and can be one of the causes of similar symptoms to this. But we did, again, with that waveform establish, acknowledge that it got a computer issue. The air is like more humid as well, so there's actually condensation on my tools, which is something I've never had to deal with. Probably make them rusty, but I've got them opened up here in the sun, and they should dry out pretty quickly. It's not quite as humid right now as it was the past 2 days. Okay, so here's that belt. I can show you, I'll pull it out actually and then show you exactly how it is. But the really bad belt is actually the little AC belt on the back that nobody ever replaces. That one's really bad. So we've got the tensioner and the belt for that as well. We're just gonna do both. This one's pretty bad though, but that one's really bad. Like gonna snap any day bad. And then yeah, this is a computer controlled alternator we tested earlier. It was also replaced, and that was the start of the issues there when they thought it was an alternator issue, and that didn't exactly fix it. I'm not saying that it was never an issue because kind of like the cascade effect. Okay, this is not going to take too long, probably about half an hour. Belt out of there. They're pretty easy to route on these Chevys. Pretty intuitive. Some vehicles it like looks like it should go on a certain way and it does not. And you want to remember, just look up a diagram when you're done. These aren't very hard to remember or guess. Breakfast is ready. So maybe just get on this little. I like these specific tools for serpentine belts because they come in handy as a breaker bar when you got some bolts that are hard to get off. There we go. Tensioners are easy to replace too on these Chevys. There's the old tensioner. Again, it was not as strong as some. But these aren't the strongest tensioners anyways. Okay, leave that one out while we do that bottom one, makes it easier. We just got two bolts on it, I believe. So here's that little AC belt, that one that gets neglected. People, wherever you go, will often change the serpentine belt, but on these Chevys, these often get overlooked and not ordered or not kept in stock, so they usually just get left out of the information. And you can see how old and dry rotted that is. So this is the kind of belt like any day you can expect it to break. It may last another 2 years, who knows, but you can see some cracking all the way through the back on that right there. So it doesn't take much for those to go. Good to get that replaced. That was the real bad one. Oh, here's the main serpentine belt. And you can see this is time to replace as well. That fracturing in there, that dry rot cracking. Pretty bad, but not as bad as that back one. So in comparison, it doesn't look like much of a worry at all. But when they get like that, it's time to replace. Okay, so here's the old tensioner. Probably hear that a bit of play in the old tensioner here. Here's the new one. It's actually just a plastic pulley on this one. And that's totally fine. Nice and new, nice and strong. Get this one put on. Get those belts back on another 5-10 minutes, and then we'll swap out that computer. There's your look for comparison how a belt should look. Pretty nice. You just want to make sure it's not a directional belt. If it is, make sure you put it on in the right direction. All right, that belt's on the AC there. See it right down there, nice and new. New tensioner, that's great. We'll have a new tensioner here and a new belt. We'll do that now, and then we'll replace the computer. Just go ahead and get my glove out of there rather than rip it. So I have to go get a new pair. Got it pinched behind that.
Close. Tough. Try to get that tensioner last in. Usually you have to make sure these are all, the new belt has to be all perfectly set in order to go on. This one's really tight. So close. What I'm gonna do is sometimes take it halfway off of another one, like this, and get just enough room to slip it on there. I want to make sure that one goes on. Ooh, it's starting to get warm. Yep, there it goes. All right, wow, it's tough. Tell you what, not gonna be any slipping on that one for a while. Okay, just make sure it's set on everything. Really wouldn't have gone on if it wasn't. That was tight, but it's good. No complaints about that. Okay, let's unhook this battery and hook up the new computer. Okay, so here's the computer here. Slide it out. There it is. Okay, we can take a picture so we don't mess these up, but I think you can't do that regardless. And 7 or 8mm, I don't remember, 7 I think. Be 6, we'll grab 6 just in case, but I'm pretty sure it's 7. Yeah. Disconnects those. And out with the old in with the new. Save these rubber boots. Let's grab my computer. There we go. And in goes the new. There we go. Put those gaskets on here.
Okay, we got those gaskets in place. I'm gonna just carefully put these back together. Right. You don't want to over tighten these. Going straight when you're tightening it down. This is just delicate, so you want to be careful. Okay, let's put that back together there in its case. Cover it up. Okay, that's a job well done. Let's verify that it's all fixed. Warm this truck up. Glad the alarm didn't go off. Theft going on right now, which is not unusual, so we'll just get everything reset here to the computer and it'll be good to go. Just quite the little process on these Chevys. Like 30 minutes, you gotta cycle the key for 10 minutes 3 times and then wait. I kind of messed it up at the beginning, so it's like the 5th round. And there's that, so it should start. If not, I've got to disconnect the battery and start over, so 30 more minutes. Yeah, 30 more minutes. Bummer. I will give this one more try. That's what I was doing earlier. It's kicking up for a second, but it does have that the code you'd expect. So we'll see. 10 more. Alright, 3rd or 4th time's the charm. Let's see. It should go off here in just a second. That's because I started doing it without, apparently you're supposed to try and start it each time. Supposed to reset at 10 minutes, but that light's still on there. There it goes. I was right at 10 minutes. It was normally like 9 minutes, 45 seconds. Okay, so that's the 3rd time because you're supposed to try and start it so that light comes on every time, and I was doing it without getting that light to come on. So supposedly, we just wait a couple seconds and it should start this time. Hopefully. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, finally got it. That only took 2.5 hours. But it's the rest of the day's free. I was just gonna take a relaxed day, and so I just watched some shows out here and chilled out in the customer's car. We're gonna let this warm up and make sure that we don't lose, 14 volts there. And I'll tell you one thing: I'm major relieved that it started this time. So I think this is pretty much the end of the project. We'll let this warm up and make sure we don't lose voltage like we were before, and we shouldn't. All right, so far so good. I'm just looking at the dash gauge because I verified that worked last time, and I'm charging my scan tool right now. But if we bring up those RPMs and we drop them off like we did before, we've got good voltage. So right under 14 volts, that's great. Maybe torque anywhere between 13.6 and 14.2 is good. Nothing to stress about. All right, even better driving. 14 volts, very consistent. That's what I figured. It was just relearning the charging system while we were kind of idling there, so I made sure to get it up to speed, and that is a job well done. 100%. Yeah, that was a crazy diagnosis. Took 4 days out here in the heat. You know, if you want to keep these videos coming, consider becoming a channel member to help support the channel. Drop me a few bucks at the links in the description to help me buy a cold drink on these hot days. I'll keep the videos coming. If you like them, give them a thumbs up. See you on the next episode.